And welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Patrick Dewar. My guest today, you're going to like this. You're going to like her because she is someone that has a real flair for teaching and serving her audience with the aspects of health and nutrition that takes on, well, the whole person. Elizabeth Naylor with Ebenezer Wellness, EbenezerWellness.com, has a real system. And in my opinion, as educated as she is so much information for you today. You're going to love her. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
I want to get into, I always like to start with your story. And I know the why of what you do is huge. So what's your story? Why do you do what you do?
Well, Patrick, when I was in my early 30s, I had 3 small children and found myself really exhausted, and which is not uncommon for a young mom, but exhausted, suffering from migraines, weight gain that actually happened after my pregnancies, so it wasn't like that was because of the pregnancies, and just really a foggy head, inability to focus on anything, and it really wasn't who I had always been, and I looked for answers with my team of medical doctors. I always was surrounded by a great team of doctors and really got the same answers over and over again, which typically involved antidepressants or just excuses of, well, you're just getting older. And I thought to myself, well, I think I was like 32, and I thought, okay, this is really going to be bad if this is what the rest of my life is going to look like. And so that, you know, I was not always a person who believed in nutrition and that it even mattered. And so I like to tell people I'm a convert to natural health because I didn't always have that philosophy. And so as I started to explore, could that possibly have an impact on my health, I realized that, wow, I was suffering from some things called adrenal fatigue and toxicity and some other problems that as I got into it and began to resolve those with my diet and my lifestyle, things started to turn around for me.
Well, it looks like you went really deep into it. I mean, you've not only do you have a chemistry degree, you know, your bachelor's, the next thing you have is your master's in business administration, and then you went on to get more education and more education. Now you're almost completed with your doctorate program. Right. And in nutrition?
Mm-hmm. In holistic nutrition.
Holistic nutrition.
Right.
So, I mean, you've really dove into this area. And so when you think about where you're at now, what are you, I guess I want to sit there and say, you know, how did it form into a coaching program and a mentoring program like you've got and a speaking program that you do?
Well, all of the things with me personally started to happen around 2004, and within about 18 months I decided to go for a certification in applied clinical nutrition through a local chiropractic college here, and that really gave me a tremendous amount of practical experience with whole food nutrition, and as you say, very shortly after that I started a doctoral program. I have been through a season with raising 3 children, so it's been a slow doctoral program, but I'm getting to the end of that with my coursework. And around 2009, I realized the thing that was really missing from my practice was an interaction with supporting my clients and finding their best thinking.
Right.
And what we like to say in our coaching class is that a strategy is great as long as people will do it.
Right. Implementation is everything.
Right. And so the strategies.
Doers, not hearers.
Yeah, that's right. And so the strategies, what I find in the world of nutrition and really the world of medicine in general is that we're told quite often, well, if you'll just do these 10 things, you'll get better. Or if you'll just follow this exercise program or this diet program or take this pill. And what really people need are really to understand how to find their own best thinking, not just when they're working with a coach, but moment by moment in their everyday lives.
Awesome. So once you begin to work on their thinking, what are some of the next steps that people need to focus on?
Well, what I do is really weave in education around natural health and nutrition, I weave that in with this idea of finding your best thinking and this coaching program, because what I find is people need both. And we've really lost, as a society, we've lost the ability to even think clearly. We don't really see ourselves as thinking people. We're very reflexive, and we view quick decisions as the best decisions.
Right.
So there's the thinking, but then there's also the nutrition. And the truth is we've lost a great deal of traditional food education because we no longer pay attention to that. We're 2 or 3 generations away from it, really.
Really?
Right.
And I know that there have been some real losses in even the nutrition that we try to eat. We don't have the right foundation anymore like we do, like we used to.
Yes.
Wow, wow. Well, you know, as we're coming up to this next segment, we're going to look really into the processes that Elizabeth teaches, and because I know that with proper information, you can create proper implementation of what you really want to create, and so you can create what you want in your life. And I know as we move to this next segment, you'll want to be here for that. This is Pat Dewar, Business Spotlight. We'll be right back. And welcome to the Business Spotlight. It's Patrick Dewar. My guest today is Elizabeth Naylor. Elizabeth is a health and nutrition expert with an alphabet soup after her name is one way to describe it. She has so much education that literally, in my opinion, gives so much value to all of her clients. As we get into this segment, I really want to look at, we've talked about how you become a master in this area, in my opinion. You now are serving so many people. What are you doing to create the success you're having?
Well, when I first started, Patrick, in 2006, I started with a philosophy and an understanding that most disease, all disease really, almost all disease, stems from toxicity, malnutrition, and stress. And the 3 of those things really incorporate all that needs to be done when we think about health care. When we think about authentic health care, where we're working for people to stay healthy, to be healthy, and not necessarily considering curing disease, thinking about avoiding disease, then we're talking about toxicity, malnutrition, and stress. And so I'll give you a few examples. When I started with, just recently actually, I had a client in, she brought me her blood work. She was having a multitude of problems, but she brought me her blood work because she was diagnosed with hypothyroid. We took a look at it, and this is an example about malnutrition. You think in the United States we are quite overfed. We have more calories and more caloric intake as a population, almost 1.5 times what we need. But we are very much undernourished. And so I looked at her blood work and I said, well, really your problem is that you're not converting this hormone, and it requires selenium, and it just means you're not getting that in your diet. And so we talked about Brazil nuts. Do you know if you eat 1 Brazil nut a day, it's like a selenium supplement? And it really, in a lot of cases, has just completely fixed people's thyroid problems. There are other places you can get it if you don't, in food, if you don't particularly like Brazil nuts. But really, that's a vitamin E, garlic nutrient that's found in those foods. And you can also take whole food supplements. But taking selenium by itself, not my favorite choice. I really prefer to work with food.
Well, I've heard that selenium is also good for things like memory and some of the other things that have to do with your brain.
Right.
But I didn't know that about the thyroid. Since I take some thyroid stuff, it's probably good to know that.
Yeah, it's great. And it's just an example of how when we're missing minerals, minerals are activators of hormones in our body.
I didn't know that.
And when we're missing them, In fact, some scientists they're feeling they're so close to hormones, it's hard to tell the difference. But they are activators of hormones in our body. And so the hormones that we have don't work correctly if we're malnourished.
Very good.
Another client just 2 weeks ago came in with terrible arthritic symptoms, and we were talking. She's a young woman. She'd been to several specialists and did not really want to take those medications. Some of them she'd tried and they hadn't helped, but it was really a lifestyle issue of she's young, she wants to have children, they're not really safe to take. And so we talked through several things and decided, well, a great place to start is the 21-day purification program. And so she started that program. She called me on day 5 and said, I woke up this morning with no pain in my hands. Now, I don't always get those kinds of results, but I was just thrilled to hear that. And I said, well, that's fabulous. Let's see how you do. Day 21, still no pain. And so in her case, a lot of that could be toxicity, a lot of that of things that we don't even necessarily know. But when you feed your body the right things for your liver to function better, all of a sudden you take care of a lot of problems.
Well, I've heard that so much of health can be taken back to things that have to do with clean blood, oxygen-rich system. You know, I mean, I've heard the statement that sickness thrives in an oxygen-poor environment.
Yes.
And so, you know, raise your oxygen, you'll actually raise a level of your health. Is that fairly accurate?
Well, it's certainly accurate that if you're anemic, you will have a very difficult time being healthy, or even borderline anemic, and a lot of people do suffer with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you begin the process with people, is there a starting point for people that you would recommend? What would you like them to, you know?
Well, a starting point for most people is just to have a conversation with me. You know, call 10, 15 minutes conversation about where are you, what are you, what are your issues, and then from that point, usually we can determine what program would be the best place for them to start. People who want to know more about me, go to my website, EbenezerWellness.com, and sign up for the newsletter. That's really the key to getting into understanding more about my practice, understanding more about what we're doing, and how we might be able to support your health goals.
Well, and you're a prolific writer. I mean, there are a lot of articles already out there on EbenezerWellness.com where they could just click on and begin to search for areas that, or information that might help them in the beginning. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
I know that so I recommend that you guys do that. You get with EbenezerWellness.com, check out the newsletter, sign up for it. It's free, so just do it. I mean, the fact is that we're in a time period where health and nutrition are, well, they're rare commodities, and Elizabeth has some real solutions for you. Go to EbenezerWellness.com, sign up, and stick around for the next couple of segments here, because we've got more to come with helping you get healthier with Ebenezer Wellness on the Business Spotlight. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Business Spotlight. Patrick Dewar here. My guest today, Elizabeth Naylor of Ebenezer Wellness at EbenezerWellness.com. Elizabeth, I want to get into really who you're trying to reach. Who are you trying to reach?
Well, my ideal client is someone who is really interested in thinking about their health differently. They're very interested in feeling empowered and confident about their health, and moving really from a place of fear to a place of empowerment. People who want to live their lives fully, not really looking for the next disease diagnosis, but really looking for health, and just not even for that to even be an issue in their lives. Most of my clients I find the bulk of them are between 35 and 55 when they start with me. Although I work with people of all ages who are ready to have a change in their life.
They're ready to implement.
Right.
How much does stress count or affect a person's health?
Well, as I mentioned in our last segment, toxicity, malnutrition, and stress really are the drivers for disease. Studies have shown that hereditary functions really account for less than 5% of our disease state, but it's really more about those environmental factors. And so stress is huge. I have a client who's been with me really since the beginning, and she deals with a significant autoimmune disease, and stress exacerbates the problem.
Right.
For all of us, but particularly autoimmune disease. And one of the things that's a stressor on your body is being malnourished and toxic themselves. And so I use a tool called the hair mineral analysis, and we can see your adrenal strength, we can see your blood sugar balance, we can see your thyroid function at a really high level, at a level long before they would become a disease state. And so as I've worked with clients like her, if I work with them and we support their adrenals, we support the areas where they're weak, and we also, in her case, she was dealing with a tremendous amount of stress. We support that with maybe some herbal supplements or certainly with diet changes. Then that really gives the client the room to then have some emotional space, really is what it is, because it just takes the edge off the stress and gives them some emotional space to then focus on themselves a little bit. That's what I find with a lot of both men and women in their mid-30s, 40s, is we have so many responsibilities that on the list of things that we have to take care of, we're not even on the list. We completely forget that we need to focus on ourselves a little bit and take care of ourselves. And when a person's ready to do that, then they're really ready to make some changes. And that's really where the assessment tool for the coaching comes in, because it helps people understand the thinking behind their choices so that they begin to understand, I may reflexively reach for that cookie or that extra glass of wine or that stress response, those negative emotions. I may reflexively do that, but I don't have to continue to do that the rest of my life.
That's really good. Now, you do a fair amount of keynote speaking and addressing groups of different the medical practices and things of that nature. I mean, you talk a lot about these different things, correct?
Yes.
And then also, I know you've got some different webinars that you do. Mm-hmm. And some training that you're doing on an ongoing basis. Do you have any programs that are coming that are or even out there that you're doing? I know you're doing one webinar, but isn't that to promote something greater than that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're pretty regularly doing complimentary webinars to introduce people to the topic of avoiding the big four: disease prevention, holistic prevention for cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and dementia, Alzheimer's, which all have some underlying nutrition stress drivers. And so the overview is complimentary, and it really highlights the fact that that's an 8-week series that I've delivered in a corporate environment to groups, that I've delivered on webinars to people who've signed up to be a part of those monthly coaching groups. And so yes, that's
excellent, because I know that's such a huge value. 8 weeks, and they're learning the real keys to avoid you said the big four, and they are again?
I call them the big four: cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and dementia, Alzheimer's.
Wow, and
really
that kills, in America,
right,
millions. That's a huge, that's like, what, 90% of the reasons people die.
Right, exactly.
In old age.
Well, and the things, they're not, I mean, people don't tend to die from diabetes, but it's a lifestyle changer. It's a huge lifestyle changer. And we all, anyone who's ever lived with a family member who has any of these diseases recognizes that it really diminishes your life.
Yeah, and I've heard that from a number of people that have, when that happens, when they're diagnosed, it's a life-altering experience.
Yes.
And I know that some people have found ways that using health and nutrition to actually begin to maybe even curb some of that or correct it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. You can do a tremendous amount with nutrition to control blood sugar, and that is a big key to preventing many of these diseases.
That is awesome. Well, folks, I encourage you to get Elizabeth's newsletter at ebenezerwellness.com. Sign up for it. It's free. I've read through them, and I was blown away at the volume and of the information and the quality of the information that she has there. I know as we go into this next segment, you're going to learn even more about ways to connect with Elizabeth. And so this is the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. We'll be right back. Thanks again. And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Patrick Dewar. My guest today, EbenezerWellness.com, and it's Elizabeth Naylor. Elizabeth, thanks so much again for being here.
Thank you.
I want to really ask you about how people can connect to you. We've talked about the newsletter. Send them there. What are some other steps that they can take to connect?
Well, we have, as I was mentioning, complimentary webinars, hour-long webinars that we're doing in a variety of series, and you find that on my website or through the newsletter. And beyond that, we've begun monthly webinar groups that people can subscribe to and go even deeper. They're going to highlight nutrition education, they're going to highlight coaching, and they're going to highlight other practitioners who were involved in holistic health, who were in an area that not what I'm doing, particularly with nutrition and coaching, but in other areas that might be supportive. And we're going to begin that soon. And then we will also be conducting 90-day intensive seminars. So for webinars, really. So for people who are really ready to make a change and want to do some of this testing I've been talking about, they want to take the coaching assessment or look at their hair analysis or start to understand what their symptoms mean, the 90-day intensive is really the best way to get started.
That's really great. And the one thing that I know about you is that they're going to get a lot of the information that you've had to spend years assembling. They're able to get it in a kind of diamonds, you know, what I call 9-pound pearls. You're rolling these things out there as high value, high impact. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I've spent a tremendous amount of time. You know, one of the drivers for me when I first started was I literally spent 3 years going from quite a variety of doctors and specialists and alternative practitioners and really all over the place trying to find answers. And I had this kind of intuitive feeling that what was going on with me was not a pharmaceutical deficiency, that what was going on with me was something that would require me to make some changes in my life, but that was fixable, that it was something that I could start to manage my own stress, I could start to live my life differently. And so one of the things that I've been doing from the very beginning is recognizing that, you know, people are not parts and they're not things, they're not to be fixed. What they really are to be supported, and if we give people the right information and support their best thinking, I really believe that they're capable of finding their own solutions.
Right.
And so that's the partnership that I work in with clients, and I think that conversion, that attitude is really what supports people in deciding what they want to do. And in a group of 20 people, you may have 20 different solutions, but if it works for that person, then that's great.
Well, and you're so good about once you've found somebody that is willing to implement, and we've talked about that, that's crucial. If you're not willing to change, in a sense, don't sign up, right?
Right, right.
You know, information is great. Information without implementation is useless.
Well, I think we have an information overload, honestly. And I have some clients who come to me and they visited every health website that's out there. And there's a ton of information, a lot of it's conflicting, and it becomes confusing to them. And, you know, it took me 2 or 3 years to decipher what made sense to me as well.
Right.
And really took me a couple of years to figure out, okay, I really believe in holistic nutrition, and it's the foundation that I'm going to build everything on, because if we eat real food, if we eat whole food, then we're going to be healthier.
Right.
But not everyone who's even a nutritionist starts there.
Yeah, I would imagine. But then even the tests that you go through when you're talking about, you said there's a hair.
I do quite a few hair mineral analysis, which show your mineral content. Before we were talking about selenium being important for your thyroid. Chromium is important for sugar handling, and so you find, and then the calcium and magnesium balance is important for blood sugar handling as well. So you'll find that there's a value in looking at mineral content. And this is a test that's been done since the 1950s, and so it's very reliable. It also shows toxicity of metals, which can be very important. It's not a typical thing that I find that people are highly toxic, but occasionally that is the case. And that's not work I particularly do, but I have resources where I get support for them. So yes, I do the hair analysis. Occasionally we'll do saliva testing, which gives you your hormone balance, the actual hormone levels, and that can be very valuable depending on what your situation is. And then I also do the coaching assessment.
That is really awesome, because again, I've seen the things the kind of work that you put out there and the presentations that you've been given have really impacted the listener. If they'll take some action, they'll change their life, won't they?
Yes, they sure will. Yes, and my vision for Ebenezer Wellness, my vision is to empower vitality in current and future generations. And that's really what we're all about. We're not just about selling supplements. We're not just about diet changes. We're not about one diet fits everyone, because that's certainly not true. But what we are about is supporting people in living a life that's fully alive and vital.
Very good. Like I say, I know that they need to connect with you at your website.
Connect with me on my website, ebenezerwellness.com.
And I know that they've got that going across the screen. Sign up for your newsletter, read some of the old copies of newsletters that you've got out there. Really engage with you to get the information that can, with implementation, change your life. As we're wrapping up today, I want to say thank you so very much,
Thank
Elizabeth.
you.
Folks, I hope you go to her website right away, ebenezerwellness.com. It's been on the screen the whole time. And I just encourage you to learn how to change your life. This is the Business Spotlight. I'm Patrick Dewar, and we'll catch y'all next time. Thanks.